Hey, it's Les from the TV Dudes. This week, I'm thrilled to chat with actor Kevin Mambo. He can currently be seen in the new Netflix drama Hit and Run as an NYPD detective with a wry sense of humor who's seen it all. Kevin has also had large roles on hit series such as Luke Cage and High Maintenance, and he is a two-time Daytime Emmy winner from his leading role on the long-running soap opera Guiding Light. We discuss all of that, his music background, stage and film work, and much more. It's a great interview, and I hope you enjoy. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Les, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for making time today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I know maybe not started your career, but early in your career, you got a great role on Guiding Light, which you turned into a couple of daytime Emmys. Can you talk to me a little bit about where you were in your love of acting at the time? What were you thinking your career might look like, and did that role? How did that role change it for you?
It's a hilarious story, actually. So I had gone to McGill University. I was going to go to law school and needed to study African history, and thought I was going to get a job at the UN or something quite that entertaining. And found myself auditioning for plays all the time, and realized that this was kind of more where I was headed. I got into USC, studied there for 4 years doing my BFA, and spring break of senior year, I came out to New York to audition. Everybody, spring break was going to do fun stuff. The girl I'd just broken up with was like going to Italy for spring break. I was the guy who was just staying home. And then the last minute, a phone call came and said, you got to audition for a soap. They want to screen test you in New York. So flew out to Manhattan for a day or two to the studio to screen test, came back to Los Angeles to finish the semester, and they called back and said, he's great. We really like him, but he's too young for this role. I think he was a doctor or something like that. But we want to hold on to him and put him on contract when he gets out in a few months. Coming out of, theater school, that is like the golden ticket, right? You actually have a job before you graduate. Not heard of. So I was, sort of like congenial guy on campus for a while, and then it was time to start work. And there had been a shakeup in the studios in terms of producers, et cetera, writers. And so the new producer called me and said, I have this contract with you, and we are coming up very soon, and I have no idea what we should be doing. And I thought, so I said to her, I'm Canadian and I'm from Zimbabwe. I speak a few different languages. I grew up playing jazz, playing saxophone. I was like, why not a jazz musician from Europe? I'm like, let's think about that. They thought about it, came back and said, we couldn't think of anything better. That's great. So it actually kind of helped me to mold a character that kind of was more of an extension of myself as opposed to meeting somebody outside of myself.
Yeah. Well, and that's just an
which
amazing...
one also doesn't get to do very often, right? So
that's what I was thinking.
Be on the show, be a young dread. I'm playing horn. I'm writing music for the show. One of my mentors who had passed, but he was on the show, was playing along with me. We're in the studio. We're gigging in New York, but we're also doing the same thing on the air. So I think there was just a very organic sense to whatever it is that I was doing. I also took time to really study who the older, more seasoned cast members, what their methods were and what they did and what cuts they took and what you just didn't get a chance to really study before getting on the ground with them. So I sort of took that 3 years of soap time at grad school, because it's a pretty grueling schedule. I mean, you have to finish the show every day.
Yeah.
A new show comes out every single day, so no one's going home until the episode is done. It's not like being on location. I mean, you're in a studio and it's in a controlled environment, and of course, after time, how to do things faster and et cetera. But it's still a pretty, it's a hybrid in a way between screen and stage in a lot of ways.
I always wonder when I've heard that before, that soap operas film at this amazing clip, and
Yeah.
and that, I always kind of wonder, coming off of that onto a film production that's got 90 days of principal photography or something like that. Does it feel like coming off of an airplane, an airport walkway of just, suddenly slowing down and like, oh, we're just going to do 3 scenes today. Okay, cool.
Well, yeah. I mean, I can't say what the project is that I'm doing right now, but I'm out of town working on something, and like the last day or two have not been complicated days. I've had a lot of like reaction shots with people, and we had some major shots that have to be in the film, but I also didn't have any dialogue. I think I slept for 10 hours last night. So it's kind of like the body adjusts to wherever you are, right? It's like we have to shoot 2 movies tonight, and all of a sudden, everything tightens up and you're ready to do that. Then it's like we have to do 3 scenes today. Oh my God, these things are taking forever. That's what's like, human beings are just fucking shitty. we're shitty.
One of the shows that you have been on that I love anytime I get to talk to an actor that's been on it is High Maintenance. It just a fantastic piece of work, and always just looks like it's got to be a cool set to be on. There's just such an amazing tone to that show, and I'm always amazed that they stuck with it even when
they were so cool. Yeah, they were so cool. And it was interesting because my character is in the pilot. So I think for them, coming off of having a very, very specific and set tone when they were doing the series on Vimeo before it got picked up by HBO, now we were at the beginning of their flip onto HBO. And I love that the pilot itself is just like, it's so murky, right? Like Dude with the Bike is just, you look through his eyes at like the madness of this world, because because of the pilot, it is as yet undefined.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. So the viewer is also as confused as he is about everything that's happening in this first hour. And we had just a really great supportive team on set. And they would do really great things, just like sort of stop for a second and just hold in silence for a minute before shooting the next shot. Just little things to kind of pull everybody together. One of the funnest jobs I've ever done. One of the funnest jobs I've ever done. It really felt like you were welcome, and you could input, and even without that, I don't know, it was just a very cohesive. I don't think shows that are that weird are going to be able to exercise their best without real cohesion. Some shows can just kind of run like a factory, right? You got like your procedural sometimes, and then you're sort of slotting in different directors every week. But the show the juggernaut of the machine sort of runs itself in a lot of ways with the showrunners, right? But something like this is always it's exciting because you don't know, you don't know what the end is. And I thought, once I started watching the show myself, I was like, I just watched a whole episode of a dog, and I think I'm a dog now. Like, I think I understand dogism more than Caesar Milan based on this episode. I thought that was a really great project for them, and I was really happy to be a part of it. And people also still stop me in the street and just will pull one of the weirder lines. I think it was a little Easter egg that I put in the second one. I was in Harlem at a place I used to hang out at. I had stopped in for a second with someone I was dating, and she was standing next to me. And then like this really, really young girl and her friend, one black, one white, and they're like, the Bobbsey twins duo, and they come over to the bar. And so, how when you're really, really high school young, you just like you're just spilling everything all over the room. Everything's on the table. Like, zero couth, like no grace. And so I think I was singing along to something that was playing on the speaker, something like that, humming along. And she was just like, yeah. I was like, what? She said, yeah. I said, what? I'm checking it. I was like, what? checking your vocals. Scared what? I'm checking your vocals. I just thought it was the most hilarious thing. So my character in the show says, "You're checking my vocals, girl. I'm checking your vibe. I'm checking his vibe." And he's a googie. I was just instructed, no matter what happens, it has to end at googie. So I think it would be so fun to do an entire series like that. Like, I get to jump in and out of spot stuff like that periodically. But, like, yeah, I wish that I very, 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 like, by the sliver, missed an opportunity to be on Delocated.
Oh, yeah.
Holy shit. Like, I love that show. When I'm still, like, not feeling super awesome, I'll just put one on just 'cause.
That's great.
That was one that I missed, but I got to meet him for, what was it, like Green Jack or something like that? The next show that he did about like a wolf hunter, like a zombie wolf hunter. It's so out of the park. It's really actually kind of crazy, but like, you know, you want to be cool, then you walk in the room and then you just like give up all of your cool. All of your cool, like a 12-year-old with Tic Tacs, you just give it all up immediately. I was just like, I thought, oh, yeah.
Like, I'm a professional. I do this for a living. That's the problem with reading with people sometimes that you really dig, right? You're working with people that you really admire, really dig. It's like you gotta hold your cool. Well, I gotta try. I've got to think Hit and Run's got to be a little bit like that. That has to have some moments like that.
We had such great people on the show. Like, you know, I was a fan of Lior's from Fauda.
Yeah.
So I was so happy, you know, when casting and Don and the whole team pulled me in, and working with Sanaa was awesome. And Greg Henry, who's one of my favorite actors and also a very good friend, I was just like, Greg, this is the first time we really get to actually be in a thing together. I was like, I don't even care if it's not the same scenes. He's a phenomenal actor, and people don't know, but a phenomenal composer and musician as well. I mean, and having Mike Barker and Zoe coming from Handmaids as a team just made everything tight, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, everything really, there was a lot of shorthand moving around set. And when I'm on set, I like to hear two things: shorthand being moved around quickly, and the word "I don't know." Because particularly when you're working in the theater and on stage, I don't know that room. That I don't know room is usually where you're going to get your answer. So it's kind of be brave enough to work on that edge and just get to the edge and be like, shit, I don't know. That's kind of a really great place to work. And in Hit and Run, I felt like we did do a little bit of that, you know?
Yeah.
They left certain things. They just left certain things to organic movement. It wasn't about just plugging things into a shot list, which is why I feel like, you know, the characters on the show feel alive. They don't feel like a bunch of scripted people walking around. You know.
Your musical past is just incredibly interesting to me. I mean, you play several instruments, and I love that you had the forethought to bring that up in the room, you know, when you got the opportunity to, hey, what do we do with your character? Well, I mean, I play some instruments, I do some things. How is music kind of, has it been a parallel interest? Was it something that at some point you felt like you needed to make a choice of acting or music, or?
I think it was more than anything. So like, you know, the funny anecdote story is like when I started, I went to a boarding school for the last 2 years of high school, and I was vehemently opposed. The compromise was the place where I was going had a good music program, and the guy who was doing the program teaches jazz, etc. I said, "So you get what you guys want, I get what I want." And I get to the school, and I'm as good a player as he is at 15, if not better. So he's not so happy with that. So I start getting sidelined more and more. And to sort of strike back, I signed up for the school play. It wasn't even a heady decision. And the next thing I know, I'm playing the King and the King and I. And I think to myself, well, how am I going to do this? So what I started to do at that moment was borrow problem-solving techniques from music. There's an arc here, there's dissonance here, there's a crescendo here, what's the tempo, what's the volume of this, and started to frame it that way. So I found at a pretty early stage that I could integrate the two a little bit without too much difficulty. Fast forward, living in New York, I now, because of my music background, it's like I was in Fortress of Solitude. I was in Cadillac Records playing Jimmy Rogers, the guitarist. I was in the Nina Simone film playing her guitarist as well. So I starred in Fela on Broadway. And to be, it's one thing to do a bunch of dance moves and be able to like sort of sing dialogue. It's another thing to be a musician with your band on stage, which was Antibalas, which was amazing. Amazing. Every night. It just felt like a concert. So I've had the opportunity to pursue it, but it's been slow only because you just kind of can't be in two places at the same time, and I can't yet afford an assistant. If I couldn't afford an assistant, that would be like the most overworked person I know. Because they'd be going and getting charts, strings, setting up sessions, other writers, etc. But you want to craft your craft well. Of course, you have to. Not only does it take time, but you got to give it your focus. You can't really split off. But I'm in the middle of doing a ton of music with people right now. COVID really helped create that space for a minute, And it'd be wonderful to be like that dude doing 2 or 3 movies a year, and then you have 3-4 months off of the year to make music and write. So I'm trying to aim myself in that direction if it will align itself in my direction.
Well, you don't sound like.
But generally speaking, I don't really like a lot of musicals. But I was in Color Purple. Like I do musicals. I get hired for workshops, but I do kind of the more offbeat stuff, like Fortress of Solitude, based on the book by Jonathan Larson about kids growing up in the 70s in Brooklyn. Sick Bastard with Bruce Hornsby, who's like the coolest fucking dude, and just hanging out with him in his house and making music with a genius.
Yeah, no, I've heard he's one of those musicians other musicians mention of like, oh yeah, and then I saw Bruce Hornsby play and it just scared the crap out of me. Holy God.
It's unbelievable. Like he's like David Byrne, right? I think they're just so deeply on the spectrum that it just heightens their intelligence. Bruce, when we were at his house, so in his studio, he has an American and an overseas Steinway side to side, but in the house overlooking the creek, that's where he has another piano where he sits, the Bosendorfer, where he sits and like composes and practice. He'll pull out sheet music. His thing a few years ago, he was getting into Schoenberg 12-tone, 8-tonal compositions.
Okay.
So that shit is in our musical, right? 12-tone, 8-tonal compositions. And the kids who are used to doing Oklahoma, they can't sing it. But I played jazz for 10 years, so I was like, this is actually kind of hip, So while everybody got the music tour, and he can play 12-tonal, 8-tonal compositions from memory. I'm talking about 7 or 8 sheets of music. He just folds it up and starts playing. And because he's 6'6", his reach on the piano, it's dumb. Yeah.
That's
He's
wild.
got a basketball player's son for a reason. Yeah. So we go to his house, and the rest of the crew kind of goes on the art tour. They collect art. He's like, yeah, come with me on the music tour. And he gives me the music tour of the house. And it's like the instruments and photos of who he played with. And I think all artists, all of us, have that 1 cent royalty check that we keep just because you keep that, from one thing or another. But I think he got a one penny royalty check from Jerry Garcia for something, overseas in Turkey. They played it one day or something. And he's like, yeah, man, I played with the Dead. And I told him, I was like, nothing personal, but I hate the Dead. I almost broke up with a girl over this kind of stuff. I was like, these guys don't sing in tune. Their instruments aren't in tune. They do not practice. It is just difficult to listen to. He's like, I understand how you feel, but listen, he played something. I can't remember what the composition was. I was like, that's fucking amazing. He's like, yeah, that's dead. So he was a really great, not only was he great glue for them, but it was kind of great glue for me to pull something away from a situation like that. It's like, how do you take something like that and turn it into something like this?
Yeah.
And so kind of, if I'm sort of on the musical plate, that's what I do. But I do a lot more shows with like downtown with like Lynn Nottage. I was in the original Company of Ruin that won the Pulitzer. I did Sweat in Pittsburgh, but it also won the Pulitzer. And we did Malima's Tale, following ivory tusks from the moment poachers kill an elephant all the way into like some Chinese executive lost in Singapore, finely carved, and etc. So it's been a nice broad swath of work. You know, I played in bands in New York for a good amount of time, and I was also a DJ for years in New York. I played the Limelights, Club Deep, Gaslight, different places. So.
Well, you don't sound like a person who lets an opportunity slip. And folks can go, of course. I mean, folks have probably already seen you in Luke Cage. They can go catch that right now. They can catch Hit and Run right now.
Yeah.
Just tons of work over the years. And thank you so much for talking to me about it today. It's really
yeah, man. You got it. Anytime. I'm a fan of your guys' show. You guys crack me up, and you're right on point.
I remember seeing a college class at University of Texas with a professor who played a bunch of Schoenberg 12-tone stuff, just trying to introduce us to the idea of it. Man, watching 50 people who were like 19 or 20 and just unprepared for this just random
right, tweaking out on the dissonance, right?
Yeah, and this professor, it's not
you get
random.
Old enough, and you're like, dissonance is beautiful.
She's like, no, they took the scale and they flipped it upside down and then they reversed it. It's not random, and there's like 3 math majors going, this is the best music I've ever seen. Yeah, it was great. Same professor had asked who all could play piano in the room, and somebody raised their hand. You're like, okay, after the break, I'm gonna have you play a piece. Come to the front of the room, and she had a piano and. They came out, and the piece that she'd set up there was John Cage's 4-minute dead silence.
Wow.
And so like she had told him over the break, what to do, and so like he sat there and cracked his knuckles, and then sat down for
awesome.
it, and it was great. It was just the sound of a room getting more and more uncomfortable. Just absolutely great.
I've actually used that a couple of times in sound design, and taken the entire thing and chopped it up into like 3-4 second intervals, and then literally flip it so that it's not playing backwards, but it's going from louder to quiet and quiet to loud, and put that as like conflicting hums underneath a scene in a sound design. And people didn't understand why this felt so uncomfortable.
Right.
But it's because the energy coming off the tape is so uncomfortable. Even if you think it's sub audio, your body's still registered, right? We have to do a whole other hour about this.
Oh man, yeah. There's a film called Lady World, and I think most of the sound is like skin on leather squeak and stuff like that. And like you can tell it's not orchestra strings doing Hitchcock things. It's just
right,
genuine,
it's like
but
Foley.
It's genuinely uncomfortable, and you can't place quite why. Yeah. Man, great stuff. Thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it.
You got it, man. Talk soon. Peace.
TV Dudes is an independently run podcast out of Austin, Texas. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/TVDudes.
You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is done by our friend and original TV Dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith.
To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com. I'm Randy Lander.
I'm Les Weiler.
And I'm Kyle Scott.
Thanks for listening.